Hello, my name is Chad. This video is part 2 of my Harry Connick Jr. vinyl collection. This one starts off with the year 1990, and I'm going to jump right into it. On July 3rd, 1990, Harry Connick Jr. released 2 albums. I'm going to show them in order of their catalog numbers. The first one is We Are in Love. This was billed as Harry's vocal album, and so of course the focus on the songs within this album is his singing. This is the album that I generally consider to be my all-time favorite Harry Connick Jr. album. I hate to say that there's not a bad song on this album because I don't think there's a bad song on any Harry Connick Jr. album, but this is my go-to album. I absolutely love this one. It has a couple Harry Connick Jr. classics on it. We Are in Love, the title track, and Recipe for Love, which was the single from this album. This album also has 2 songs that I consider to be 2 of my all-time favorite Harry Connick Jr. songs. From side 2, It's All Right With Me, and from side 1, possibly my all-time favorite Harry Connick Jr. song, Forever For Now. With this album, we get some nicer packaging. It has a printed inner sleeve that has all the lyrics and the album credits. And there's also a note from Harry on this album. And you'll see these notes moving forward on the albums to come. And this is, of course, on the Columbia label. I also have a European pressing of this album. Over the barcode, it has a sticker that says Made in England. It has the same printed inner sleeve, only this one is a lot nicer. It's a heavier paper that has a glossy finish. And this European pressing also includes 2 advertising inserts. It has a single-sided black and white insert that advertises 2 home videos that were available at the time. And it has a double-sided full-color insert that also has the 2 home videos, but also the other albums that were available. And this one is on the CBS label. I also have the single for this album. This is kind of a double A side because on one side it has Recipe for Love, the single from this album. On the other side, it Had to Be You, which was the single from the previous album, When Harry Met Sally. The other album released on July 3rd, 1990 is Lofty's Roach Soufflé. This was released as Harry Connick Jr. Trio. This album is entirely instrumental, and it's purely a jazz album. It features Ben Wolf on bass, Shannon Powell on drums, and of course Harry Connick Jr. on piano. The musicianship between these 3 guys is outstanding. They are literally 3 of the best jazz musicians in the country. There was a music video released from this album for the song One Last Pitch. There's actually 2 different versions of One Last Pitch on this album. It kicks off with the full version, One Last Pitch, and then on side 2, there's One Last Pitch Take 2. That version is about 3 minutes shorter than the version that's on side 1, and One Last Pitch Take 2 is the one that was used for the music video. I highly recommend this album. This is literally one of the greatest jazz albums ever recorded. These guys, Shannon Powell and Ben Wolf, if you're not familiar with them, they are 2 of the most respected jazz musicians in the country. And then, of course, Harry Connick Jr. is one of the greatest piano players ever. If you've never heard this album, I highly recommend it. And here is the inner sleeve for this album. It has the credits on this side and then the note from Harry on the other side. And here's the label. Of course, it's on Columbia. This album has the distinction of being the only album to receive a second U.S. pressing. So here's the cover, exactly the same. It doesn't come with the printed inner sleeve for this second pressing. and it has a different label. From my research on this label, this is one that was being used in the late 90s by Columbia, so I'm not sure exactly when this second pressing was released, but I'm guessing probably the late 90s. Lofty's Roach Souffle was the last of Harry Connick Jr.'s albums to receive a vinyl pressing in the US until 2001. So the remaining albums in the 90s are all European pressings. Moving on to 1991 is Blue Light, Red Light. Blue Light, Red Light was billed as Harry Connick Jr.'s big band album. It features a 14-piece orchestra. Some of the highlights from this album for me are the title track, Blue Light, Red Light, You Didn't Know Me When, which is a really great song with some humorous lyrics. With Imagination and If I Could Give You More are in the style of Dixieland, which goes back to Harry Connick Jr.'s roots in New Orleans. The Last Payday is a really dark and brooding song, which is quite unusual for Harry Connick Jr. And then the last song on this album, Just Kiss Me, is like the grand finale. It seems like every member of that 14-piece orchestra takes a solo during that song. It's played at a very fast pace and just a lot of fun to listen to. And this is on the Columbia label. The label states that this was pressed in Holland. And here's the printed inner sleeve. It has all the lyrics. The other side has the credits and the note from Harry. This next album is one that's very special to me personally. It's the first album that I truly bought as a new release. As I mentioned in the first video, I discovered Harry Connick Jr.'s music in 1991. He quickly became my favorite artist, and I went out and bought all the albums that were available up to that point, which included Blue Light, Red Light. But that album had already been out for a little while before I bought it. This album, released in 1992, 25, was the first album I truly bought as a new release. It was the first album that I anticipated being released and went out and bought it on release day. This is the second album that was titled after the age Harry was when he recorded the album, 25. This is a very stripped down album. Most of it is just Harry and his piano. There's one exception to that, which is the first song, Stardust. Stardust features Ellis Marsalis on piano. Ellis Marsalis was Harry Connick Jr.'s piano teacher when he was a child growing up in New Orleans. So Ellis Marsalis is on piano and Harry is singing. This includes a printed inner sleeve. This one is different from the others in that these are not the lyrics to the songs. These are actually individual notes that Harry wrote for each song that explains why these songs are special to him and why he included them on this album. And then on the other side is another note from Harry, and this is more like the notes that were included on the previous albums. And just to give you an idea of what this album is all about, I just want to read just a portion of this note to you. Harry writes, "This is about as raw as it gets. This is what I sound like when I'm all alone, away from the lights and the crowds. This is what I sound like when I play whatever comes to mind. This is what I sound like at 25. And this album is on the CBS Sony label. This one was pressed in Spain. That concludes part 2 of my Harry Connick Jr. vinyl collection. Part 3 will be coming up. That will resume with 1992. I have one more album from 1992 to show. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch these videos, and I hope you'll continue on this journey through Harry Connick Jr.'s vinyl discography with me.